right, so welcome everybody. I'm going to share my screen. Okay. I don't multitask very well, so give me a second. All right, so welcome everybody. Thank you for joining. Hold on, one more order of business. Hold on. Okay. I'm technologically challenged. So, all right. Thank you for coming. My name is Kelly Gluckman. This is an ongoing series concerning HIV. This is brought to you by brightbod.com. And I just want to let everybody know that these presentations are not intended to be medical advice. I am only speaking from my own personal experience. I have silenced all the microphones for about 20 to 25 minutes while I do my presentation, and then at the end I will open it up for questions. I encourage you to ask as many questions as you'd like. I will answer them to the best of my ability. If questions come up along the way, write them down, grab a pad of paper and a pen so that you remember them. And please ask questions. I'm happy to answer. And if you find that you have questions after this is all over, you can log into brightbod.com and go to the questions section and actually record yourself asking a question. And then someone will come and record themselves responding. You always have the opportunity to get your questions answered. So use Brightbod as a resource. So today, I will be talking about HIV denialism. This subject is very important to me. I found in creating this presentation that this was kind of triggering for me, and you'll find out why. So why am I talking about this? Story time. Every presentation is going to have a certain amount of story time because this is obviously my personal experience. I am HIV positive. I've had this for 6 years. When I was first diagnosed, I've said this before, but I had a lot of distrust for the government and for the pharmaceutical companies. I did not want to take medication. I dove into research. I researched everything I could find. My boyfriend at the time, who I was diagnosed with, he went to an Earth Day festival. And at the Earth Day festival, it was like a big stage with bands. So a band would go on, they'd get done, and then in between bands, people would get up on stage and make announcements. And so this man went up on stage and made an announcement that he had a treatment, a cure for HIV. And I wasn't with my boyfriend at the time. This was my boyfriend at this festival without me. So he heard this guy talking, and this guy had a coat on, a medical coat, and he presented himself as a doctor, and he was talking about this treatment that he had. And he had a lot of conviction and was very persuasive. And so my boyfriend ran up to the stage and caught this gentleman after he was done speaking and got his information. And we were in contact with this doctor for a couple months. This doctor was practicing what he was doing in Thailand, and it had something to do with stem cells. He was presenting it as a cure for HIV. And my boyfriend and I were planning on going to Thailand and getting this treatment. It was about $6,000 plus what it would cost to get us over there. He had a website called like globalstemcells.com. On the website, it said that he had a treatment, a cure for HIV. All of his patients were testing HIV negative, blah, blah, blah. And I went so far as to have my parents talk to this doctor on the phone. And my mom got a really bad feeling from this guy. And I did not have $6,000 plus airfare to go to Thailand. So my dreams of being cured were crushed, because my mom and dad were not going to pay for it. They did not trust this person. My mom's instincts, luckily, are really good. Because a couple months later, I went back onto this guy's website and it disappeared. Treatment for HIV and any trace of what he was doing in relationship to HIV was completely gone from his website. So who knows what could have happened if I went to Thailand. Also, at the same time that I was talking to this gentleman, this person in Thailand, I was on HIV forums talking to other people living with HIV. And I posted a couple of links. I posted what I was talking about going over there. And everybody in the forums who were also HIV positive, and this was very soon after diagnosis. So I was very, very young in the HIV community. But these people who had had it for a long, long time were yelling at me, telling me this is HIV denialism. Don't do this, get yourself on medication. I wasn't on medication yet at the time. And so that was kind of scary, because if I had the money, I probably would have gone to Thailand, and I probably would have gotten myself into a lot of medical trouble. So that's why this is so important to me, because these things are very seductive to someone who's just diagnosed, because it's just so easy to get seduced by someone who says that they have a cure. Oh, sorry, I had to close my window. Noise. Okay, so what is HIV denialism? So this book on the right is by Christine Majori, who is an HIV denialist. She was also HIV positive. And so HIV denialism is the belief, it's been contradicted by conclusive medical and scientific evidence that HIV does not cause AIDS. Some denialists reject the existence of HIV altogether, while others accept that HIV exists, but they argue that it's a harmless passenger virus and not the cause of AIDS. HIV denialists do acknowledge AIDS as a real disease, but they attribute it to some combination of sexual behavior, recreational drugs, malnutrition, poor sanitation, hemophilia, or the effects of the drugs themselves used to treat HIV. So the woman who wrote that book was HIV positive, and she died of AIDS. So that's why I use that book cover. She was an AIDS denialist, and she ended up passing away of AIDS-related illnesses. Why is HIV denialism a thing? AIDS was largely ignored by the government until 1987, when AZT was approved for use by the FDA, and a portion of the federal budget was put towards figuring out what was going on. So it wasn't until 1987 that anybody did anything big to combat AIDS. There was over 16,000 people who had died of AIDS, and people started dying around 1980, 1981. So there was about 6 years when the death toll started increasing more and more and more, and there was crisis and there was panic, and nobody knew what was going on. So it was like a 6-year incubation period where people were left to their own devices, because none of the major federally funded institutions had any money to research what was happening. So that just kind of leaves everyone to their own, like, to figure it out. And so that's when conspiracy theories started coming up, and that's like the birth of HIV denialism and when it started coming around. So because it took so long, this put reputable peer-reviewed science behind on being able to inform the public on what was actually occurring. Peer-reviewed science is what it sounds like. So it's scientists reviewing each other's work. So it's people in the field. It's what makes your studies reputable, is to have other people who are established in the field to look at your work and make sure your work is backed by the scientific method and proper standards and procedures. Another reason why HIV denialism came about is AZT was very toxic. It was kind of effective, but the death toll did not go down quickly, and a lot of people, like, there was a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? There's like they were tinkering with the dosaging on AZT, and some people were getting extremely bad side effects. Well, everybody was experiencing horrible side effects from AZT. So one of the things denialists say is that AZT is the cause of AIDS, because AZT was so taxing on the body. HIV testing was confusing for a while until science caught up. For a while, they were testing HIV antibodies, and some false positives were coming up. There were some false negatives. There was confusion with HIV testing. And so that's another reason HIV denialists point to HIV not being the cause of AIDS. And it's denialism is a big thing, which you'll see later on in my presentation. Sorry, I'm getting like triggered talking about this. There is a lot of distrust for the government and pharmaceutical companies, especially surrounding AIDS. And there were some actual scientists, there were some people in the field who subscribed to this ideology. Dr. Duesberg is one of the big scientists, and he was actually from Berkeley. He's actually one of the members of the scientific community, but all of his work that he did with HIV was not peer-reviewed. So he pushed his work into being published. He went around the peer review system. But because there were some people in the scientific community who backed this ideology, it was accepted by a large portion of people, or like a good chunk of people. And also, it's something that humans really want to believe. When you see people around you dying, people were dropping like flies. It was unbelievable. I don't know how many of you were around back in the early 90s, in the 80s, but it was really scary. People's friends were dying. People in the entertainment industry were dying. It's really scary. So it's really easy as a human to go into denial when you have to face something as deadly as AIDS was. So now I'm gonna debunk HIV denialism. I didn't want to go too far into what they believe, because I don't even want anybody to toy too much with the idea. But HIV testing became very, very efficient and very, very accurate. Now they can look and see exactly how much of the virus is in your blood. They can see it replicating. They can physically see everything that goes on in your blood. So the accuracy has become much better. And there's over 30 years of peer-reviewed science that points to HIV causing AIDS. It's conclusive that HIV causes AIDS. Now, this graph on the left-hand side is a little confusing if you don't know what it is. So the top 3 lines are people who do not have HIV. And then the bottom 3 lines are the people who do have HIV. And so this looks at drug use. Because one of the things that HIV denialists say is that recreational drugs are the cause of AIDS, and not HIV. So if you look at the people who are HIV negative up top there, their CD4 T cell is the same pretty much. There isn't a huge amount of difference in CD4 T cells, which are the T cells that HIV attacks. No drug use, moderate drug use, heavy drug use, it doesn't matter. Your T cells are going to be pretty much the same regardless. But on the bottom, these are HIV positive people using drugs, none, moderately, or heavy drug usage. And these people were not on medication, so their T cells dropped over time. And that's because of the virus. And then, of course, there's this that you saw a couple weeks ago. This is over time. What happened in 1995 is highly active antiretroviral therapy was introduced. That's HAART, HAART. So they figured out, how to treat HIV in 1995. And so people living with HIV went up and the deaths went down. So that's just, it's really easy to see that HIV drugs do not cause AIDS. The effective ones that were found in 1995 decreased AIDS, and so HIV causes AIDS. HIV denialism is not just false, it's dangerous. These are the names of people who were HIV denialists very publicly, who they were advocates, they were HIV positive themselves, and died of AIDS. And these are just the people who were public and out there and pushing the HIV denialist ideology. You see, where's her name? Christy Majori, there she is. So on the right, the sixth person from the bottom, that's the woman who wrote that book that you saw on that first slide. Emory Taylor, the top left, he has a very special place in my heart because I did not want to go on medication, but Emory Taylor was a member of the forums that I was a member of. And when I wasn't going on medication and when I was pushing this idea that I was going to go to Thailand, the people in the forums pointed me to Emory Taylor. And they told me to go look at the archive. Go check out Emory Taylor. He was an HIV denialist. He refused to go on medication. And so I looked through his posts, and he would talk about, he got the flu and he got better, and he was a normal person living a normal life and he felt great. And but he would also post his T cells, and he had less than 100 T cells, which is an AIDS diagnosis. Less than 200 T cells per microliter is AIDS territory. So this guy refused to go on medication, and he was posting and kind of talking smack to other people saying, I'm not on medication, I'm totally fine. And then one day his name ended up in the in memoriam section. He died of Kaposi sarcoma, which is an AIDS defining illness. So this is Continuum magazine. It was an HIV denialist publication. So they were published from 1992 to 2001. All the contributors to the magazine were HIV positive themselves, and they had to cease publication because all of the contributors died of AIDS. So Thabo Mbeki was the leader of South Africa from 1999 to 2008. He was an AIDS denialist or HIV denialist himself. He was, I'm not 100% certain about how he was seduced into that ideology, but he, that's how he ran his country. That's how he influenced the people of his country for the entirety of his leadership from 1999 to 2008. And if you look at this map, this is 2015, and you look at the world, and you can see down there in the southern part of Africa, they have the highest percentage of HIV infections in the entire world. HIV started in Central Africa. So Central Africa and Northern Africa were able to control their infections to a certain degree. It's still not great, but South Africa, because this is what a bad leader can do to their country. I saw in a Guardian article, or an article for The Guardian, there were 300,000 AIDS deaths caused by Thabo Mbeki because of his AIDS denialist stance. So this ideology is absolutely devastating for the entire world. And I have so many people coming to me saying that there's a cure for HIV outside of the Western medication system. So in conclusion, science and medicine are here to help you, not to hurt you. If you're newly diagnosed, get yourself to a doctor, listen to their direction, pay attention only to peer-reviewed science. Do not believe anyone who says that there's a cure for HIV or that alternative medicine can replace HAART, which is highly active antiretroviral therapy. Alternative medicine, like herbs and diet, exercise, lifestyle, those are great to complement your medication. Those are great to have in addition to your medication, but they are not going to treat HIV. So don't believe anyone who says that anything can replace highly active antiretroviral therapy. There will be a cure in our lifetime. Just be patient and live your life in the meantime. And that's me looking cute, of course. And I took Snapchat off because I don't really use Snapchat. You can follow me on Instagram or Twitter. Find me on Facebook. You can ask me questions directly if you want. Also, I do a lot of work with Brightbot. Obviously, if you wanted to go on and video record yourself asking a question, I will be happy to answer. And then I'll open it up right now for questions as well.
Kelly, I have a question.
Yes.
Do you think there's like large profit potential in like alternative AIDS medicines that you think is kind of spurring some of this denialism?
Well, HIV denialism came about in the early 80s. I don't know. I think you can profit off of anything. Yeah. I don't know exactly why HIV denialism, I don't know if there was any ill intent out there. I honestly think that the people who started AIDS denialist ideology thought that they were helping people because the government did nothing. The government did absolutely nothing. So in the meantime, AIDS denialism came up in order to fill the gaps that science and the government weren't.
Okay.
That's my view on it. I don't know if they did it for profit or not.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Kelly.
Yes.
How long after your diagnosis do you actually start treatment?
I'm so sorry. Your computer or your connection was breaking up.
How long after your diagnosis do you start treatment?
How long after my diagnosis did I get treatment? That was the question.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes.
It took me about 9 months. I got diagnosed. I got to a doctor and he took my blood and he told me how much virus I had versus how many T cells I had. And I chose to wait because I didn't want to start medication. I was so reluctant. And so I waited. And then 3 months later, I got my blood drawn again, and he told me again. And my viral load doubled. But I wasn't, it wasn't super high as compared to what the other people who I was talking to. And so I waited another 3 months and I got my blood drawn again 3 months later. So it was a total of 3 blood draws, and it tripled. So it doubled from the first to the second, and then it tripled from the second to the third. And then at the same time, I was on the forums and I saw Emery Taylor's posts, and I looked through the archives and I watched him die pretty much. And so I saw my viral load triple and I freaked out, and I was like, okay, fine, I'll start medication now. That was my process.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So then you were something of a denialist yourself, you'd say, in the early stages?
Yeah, that's why this is so emotionally charged for me. I don't know if you noticed, but I'm like, this stuff is really emotional for me. Because I was a denialist. I did not trust the government. I did not want to start medication, and the idea that HIV doesn't cause AIDS was so attractive to me. And the idea that maybe I don't have to take a pill every day. Maybe I don't have to submit to Western medicine that I have so much distrust for. And so going through that journey of talking to the guy in Thailand and being on the forums and having my viral load triple, and I felt like it was almost like a near-death experience, because the way that I was thinking before could have led to my early death.
Is AZT still widely used?
I don't know if it's widely used. I don't know much about the intricacies of how AZT works. I know that it's hard to change people's medications, and so I think AZT is used in combination for some people who are long-term survivors, because that's what they started with. But don't quote me on that, because I don't know the specifics.
Okay.
So regardless of whether or not there was like any actual medical impact, was there anything that you think you did that helped psychologically, whether or not it really did help you with the AIDS?
I'm really sorry. Will you say that for me one more time?
Yeah, no problem. So regardless of anything that you did, so regardless of whether or not you did something that had a medical impact, did you do something that had maybe more of a psychological impact that helped you like kind of cope with whatever you were going through with the AIDS?
You mean like starting medication, or just coming to terms with living with the virus in general?
Yeah, coming to terms with.
Yeah, it was a process. The coming to terms with living with the virus is like, it's a huge process, and I chose very early on that I wanted to try to look at this as a blessing in disguise as much as possible. I looked through my archived posts in this forum, and I was diagnosed in October, at the end of October, and then by February I was posting in the forums, can this be a blessing in disguise? So I think it's like a mindset. It's a constant journey of acceptance, because I still have shitty days. You know, I get rejected by someone who I want to date because of this, and I'm like, God damn it, like, why do I have to live with this kind of thing? So it's a constant journey of acceptance. But yeah, it's like it's making the choice that that's the attitude that I wanted to have about it.
You say in one of your webinars that you still do counseling. You still speak with a counselor or someone.
You mean like that I go to a counselor?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yes, I was in therapy for 3 years after diagnosis, and then I stopped for a while. My therapist was free, and then she she got her own practice and she started having to charge more, and she got too expensive for me. But now I go to school and I have insurance, so I'm back seeing a therapist right now. I feel like a therapist is just good for life in general too, and support groups, and talking to other people who have it. I don't know if anybody here is HIV positive, but having friends who are also HIV positive is invaluable to coping.
Do you have like a support group that you go to among friends that are HIV positive?
I don't have a support group specifically, no. I went to a couple of different women's support groups, and I went to a newly diagnosed support group for a while. Nothing that I stuck with for too long. I have a friend in New York who's positive. I have a friend in Georgia who's positive, one in Florida. I have one in Colorado. It's kind of like, it's almost like a digital support group because they're like spread all out around the country. I have friends here too. Yeah, but no like physical support group that I visit regularly.
Kelly, do you find that there's a large group of folks that are in denial at any one time?
Yeah, I think that HIV positive people, I think we all have a period of denial. I think it's like the stages of grief, because getting diagnosed with HIV is like being reborn. You're dying from one life and you're living a new one now. So you lose like you lose your normalcy. So you go through those stages of grief. And I do believe that HIV positive people all go through a stage of denial, some for longer than others.
So when you find that maybe you meet with someone or see someone that, you know, you would like to be friendly with or whatever, or date, and they reject you, is that a difficult route? Because like for me, what I would say to them is, you know, you don't know what a good friend you're missing or something like that. It's your loss, you know, rather than taking on that, I would, you know, project it onto them.
Yeah. It's always difficult to get rejected. I don't know. I've been rejected so many times. Not by friends. Friends don't reject me. It's dating. But I mean, it hurts, and it's really easy to say, you know, like it's your loss. It's easier said than done, but that's the attitude I try to take as much as possible. Yeah, but pretty much it's like, yeah, like you're missing out. I try to do that as much as possible. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Question. You know, of course, there's this specific type of denialism that you discussed tonight, but it would seem that all type, you know, any denialism, any type of denial is harmful, especially in the face of, you know, an incurable and deadly disease.
Yeah.
And so what would you tell someone who seems to be you know, acting contrary to popular wisdom? Would you tell them that, you know, as far as HIV is concerned, it is better to stick with the group, or what would you say?
Honestly, for someone who is attracted to that that ideology, I would show them how many people died going through denial. I feel like it's every individual's journey to decide whether their life is worth it or not. We all have the choice in getting diagnosed with HIV. Are we going to face it and deal with it, or not? It's being faced with death, honestly, and it's every individual's choice to figure out for themselves if their life is worth it. But as a friend or as someone who knows someone who is attracted to denial or is going through denial, I would show them that I love them and that I care about them. And then I would show them like that Continuum magazine. I was shocked. I just found that in putting this presentation together. Continuum magazine was an HIV denialist publication, and the contributors were all HIV positive, and then they all died of AIDS. If you go, there's a website called aidstruth.org. That's a great website to learn more about the truth of denialism. They have a comprehensive list of HIV denialist advocates who have died of AIDS. That's where I got my list. Yeah, I'm sorry to get all morbid and stuff on Valentine's Day. I thought about this last time. I was like, maybe I should have done dating on Valentine's Day and not HIV denialism. But
isn't there another form of denial that might be more common? I'm not just talking about.
Yeah, you're talking about going into denial as a person, right?
Well, yeah, it was specifically for people who have HIV. Maybe they think that, the tried and true conventional cocktails are not the answer. Maybe the answer is some type of holistic option, or maybe there are financial circumstances or insurance circumstances that they want to believe that something good is going to happen when the circumstances seem to be telling everybody else around them that something bad is going to happen. I can think of a million different types of instances that denial could harm a person when they're trying to get better. So, would you also tell somebody who just seems determined to be a contrarian, would you tell them that I love you? Is that what you would say, or would you address them in a different way?
Yeah, I mean, what you're talking about is HIV denialism, is thinking that Western medication doesn't work, or that something else is going to work. That's HIV denialism. But yeah, that's exactly how I would tell someone, like, hey, I care about you as one human to another human, knowing what I know, like, this is how you need to take care of yourself. I feel like people don't respond to pointing fingers and saying you're stupid. You're doing this wrong, you're stupid. People don't respond to that. So showing someone that you care about them, and then showing them information that's backed by good sources, I feel like that's the best way to influence someone's behavior or ways of thought. Does that answer the question?
Yes, thank you.
Are there any more questions? I know that's a heavy subject. All right, so it's getting quiet, so I'm assuming there are no more questions. I appreciate everyone's time. I hope you learned something. I hope that wasn't too dark. But yeah, I will see everyone next week at 4 p.m. my time, 7 p.m. your time, probably. I'm terrible at this. All right, have a great day, guys.